people are so nasty. Like, why are people saying these horrible things to me when all I'm doing is playing something that I love?
Wow, well, that's this week's guest, Chelsea Randall, the Superstar Crows AFLW skipper. Now, she's not only led the team to 3 flags, but she's been part of the whole movement that is women's football. She's brave, she's courageous, and she's honest on and off the field. Now, this episode does talk about mental health, so if you have any concerns, please contact Lifeline on 13 11 14. Rightio, let's go. Welcome along to the Soda Room, a place where we get to know the real stories behind some of the biggest names in the game.
It was like we had won the grand final.
I just got some new boots. It was something special for me.
Did you understand the significance of that moment?
Oh, yeah. Nothing compared. That's what I thought I had to do as a leader.
You've got the same undies on.
I've got exactly the same ones on.
Chelsea, welcome along.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
I was going to say welcome along to one of my favourite people in football, but that would be selling you short. I'm going to say welcome along to one of my favourite people in life. Chels, great to have you here.
Thanks, Soda. It's great to be here.
Now, thank you for your time. There's one thing I discovered about you as we were getting ready. We were just working out some details. Now, you've just coughed up your full name.
I did.
What is the full name?
Chelsea Rose Elizabeth Randall. I'm lucky enough to have 2 middle names.
Well, do you know, that's unique.
Yes.
Well, it's not unique, but it's unusual.
Yeah, it is.
And I was so excited when I found out you had 2 middle names because I do as well.
I'm really curious to know what these
So
are.
you're Chelsea Rose Elizabeth Randall.
Yes.
I'm Mark Warren Kenneth Soderstrom.
Kenneth.
Yes.
Warren.
Yep.
Wow.
Lucky my parents went with the Mark, I think. Fortunately, though.
Where did they come from? What were they? Were they family members or were they just random?
Warren was my cousin who passed away before I was born, little fella who died in an accident. So that was a memory of him, which is great. And Kenneth was my dad's best mate who actually passed away in an accident as well.
Oh.
But it's not sad because, you know, nice way to remember 2 people.
You're carrying like their legacy as well.
Well, I hope so.
Yeah. Wazza and Kenny.
Wazza, Kenny. Mate,
Brilliant.
Ken Oath.
Ken Oath.
Mate, I could have been Ken Soderstrom.
Wow.
Warren Soderstrom. Rose and Elizabeth.
Yes. So I'm carrying the legacy of my grandma and my nana. So my gran, who is my mum's mum, is Rose. Mm-hmm. And she had a really long name as well. I think it was like Rosemary, Florence, Edith. Quite a few different names, I think. And my nana, dad's mum, is Elizabeth. But I think she also got called Betty as well. So, yeah. And I mean, my nana was quite unique. My nana was 47 when she had my dad.
Get out.
So dad was born an uncle. Yeah, if that makes sense.
So he was the uncle, but he was older than his nephew. No, his nephews were older than him.
Yeah. So his brother was like 25 or something, had a son who was a year older than my dad.
And your dad.
So dad grew up with his nephew. And he was younger than his nephew.
And what was what's your dad's name?
Brett.
So
Brett, no middle name, Randall.
Right.
No middle name.
So his nephew would go, "G'day, Uncle Brett. I'd like to take you down the pub, but you're not allowed to go yet."
Yeah, pretty much. So you're not 18 yet.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah,
well, Chelsea Rose, Elizabeth, it's so good to have you here. Now, how are you feeling? Because you've had a remarkable sort of change of life just in the last couple of weeks because you're now a coach of the men's program.
Yeah, it's unreal, Soda. And like, sometimes I think I was only just sharing a story of the journey to kind of where I am at the moment. There's just no way that I could have ever have imagined this or have even dreamed of where football has taken me. Yeah, I'm forever grateful to the game and the journey that I've had and the person that I've become through it and through adversities, and everyone has a story. And yeah, I'm excited to share mine.
That's what I'm really excited to hear your story. Well, Chelsea, let's go back. If you want to go way back a little bit, let's go back to WA and little Chelsea Rose Elizabeth. Now, tell us about life growing up. Where were you?
So I grew up in a place called Rockingham, and I have an older brother. His name's Scott. He was about 3.5 years older, and he was, just a competitor, basketball, football, whatever it was. Dad was super sporty. We'd always be, living next door to a park and always be playing games. He worked a lot. So Dad was just kind of the guy that would come in and be the fun guy and play sport. Mum, was incredible. She, worked as a medical practitioner in admin. But I think I was the age of 11 when I started kind of playing footy. And
Could I go back? So just for people to understand, how far is Rockingham from Perth?
Oh, so Rockingham is about an hour south of Perth.
Right, so not really regional.
No, on the coast. Yeah. So it was a nice little place growing up. But my adulthood, I lived a little bit further inland.
So when you were growing up, was it, like you said, with your dad and your brother, was it all a sporty youth?
Yeah, it was pretty sporty. We'd have the basketball ring in the driveway, be kicking the ball next door at the park. Yeah, I had a next door neighbour. Her name was Kirsty, and we were the same age, and we were 2 years old when we've met, and it's been a friendship that has been a sisterhood that has lasted, for 30 odd years. So that's a very special friendship.
So you're still tight?
Very tight. Yeah, I was her maid of honour at a wedding in Africa.
Right.
And our journeys have taken us all different places.
And where's Kirsty? Is she still in Rockingham?
She's was living in Africa for 6 years. Met a man and got married, and now she's got a little boy, Josh, who's 2, and living back in WA after the COVID situation. She came back.
Yeah. So tell us, as a youngster, sporty sort of upbringing.
Yeah.
When did football cross your path?
So footy crossed my path quite early. I guess I was probably 5 or 6 when I started watching my brother play footy. I was always on the sidelines kicking the ball, but it was only until I turned 11 that I started actually playing. And how I fell into that was, I guess, a bit unusual because I was asked to fill in for a boys' team. Back then, it was really uncommon that you'd see girls playing football. Yeah, it wasn't really normal. Right. And so when one of the coaches asked me if I wanted to fill in for the boys, it was like, oh, am I allowed to? Asked Dad, and Dad was like, yeah, go for it. He was always really supportive of me. Mum was pretty against it to begin with. She really didn't want me to play. She didn't want me to get hurt. So
you grew up with an older brother, though. I'm sure it was a pretty physical upbringing, isn't it, when you're playing sport in the backyard in the park?
Yeah, it certainly was. We had an interesting sibling relationship when we were younger. It was lots of pinching and throwing punches and stuff like this. Is that normal? I think that's normal in siblings, right?
I terrorised her.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think Dad managed to convince Mum. And played my first game of footy, but let's just say I wasn't very welcomed.
Let's talk about this first game because I do know your story with this. So you line up. Yeah. The only girl on either side?
Basically. I think so. I was the only girl, had my little ponytail, and you kind of face the opposition to begin the game. Umpires check your nails and boots, and all the opposition players had spotted me, and I didn't realise what was going to come next, and that was laughter, pointing, and just everyone like nudging each other and just laughing under their breath at the fact that I was a girl in their team. And you could see the boys in my team that they were embarrassed that I was in their side, that they were like, we've got a girl in our team, like, and everyone's laughing at us. Yeah. And so how that made me feel was, I can't even quite describe it. Like it's bringing me emotion thinking about it. Like, sport should just be able to be for anyone and everyone, and to not feel welcomed or treated the same when all I wanted to do was just play was hard for a young girl. Like,
this is the thing is, I'm watching you now. I can see the emotion in your face. Yeah. This is 20 years ago, but it's still a really, really strong feeling. It had a huge impact.
Yeah, it really does. And I don't probably get emotional when I share the story because I share it and more so for the funny side of, I guess I did next. Yes. But the truth is that really hurt me, and it drove something inside of me that I never wanted any other young girl or person to ever feel like they don't belong. And I guess that kind of started my journey in being really strong in valuing inclusivity. But from that point, I guess I just picked the boy that was laughing the hardest.
So you've got all these feelings welling up.
Yeah.
The game starts.
Yep, game starts. I remember the boy that was laughing the hardest, and I thought, I'm going to make a statement here. He picked up the ball and I tackled him into the ground, and pinned him for holding the ball. And I thought, yeah, I kind of like this game. Gotcha. Like, let that be a statement. I'm here to stay and I want to play just like you guys. So,
well, can I say that impact and what it's had on you is reflective in the way you play footy today, I can tell, because just you describing that there, that the first bounce, you've nailed this kid, you've gone, you're going to pay for this, you little bugger. You play football with absolute intensity and passion and no regard for your body like nobody I've ever seen. And it's evolved out of perhaps those early moments.
Yeah, I think it has. A really memorable moment for me playing the start of my footy journey because of the emotional impact that it's probably had on me as well.
And how did that then evolve over the next few years as you find women's footy?
Yeah.
Because I'm sure you get to the point where they go, right, you can't play with the boys anymore at a certain age. Is that sort of the way it works?
Yeah, so every season you would try to earn respect from the boys in your team. I hated it when the coach would say, jump into pairs, because no one ever wanted to be my partner. No one ever wanted to be with the girl. And I'd always be stuck with the assistant coach or whatever it might be. So I'm really conscious of that as becoming a teacher as well, that you might sometimes have to facilitate people into pairs. And so that was interesting. But at the age of 13, could no longer play boys football. And I was lucky I got permission, a special permit to play in the safety-based Stingers women's team. So as a young 14-year-old, there was no female footy pathways, no youth girls, no junior girls, no people my own age. So I had to play with people that were in their 20s or 30s. So you were in the
seniors?
Yeah, I was in the seniors.
What, 13, 14?
At 14, yeah.
Wow.
And I remember my first year and I got invited to the state open women's, training session. So I'd only been there as a little while. And they invited me down. Unfortunately, I had a little injury and niggly, and they said, you've got more footy in you, we won't take you this year.
You must have been really, really pumped. I mean, that's a great acknowledgement early on, especially at a senior level.
Yeah, well, it was very different too, the women's footy, my first year in doing that. I mean, it was made up of the senior men's girlfriends and some family members that have always wanted to play footy, but they'd never kicked a ball really before. They'd never played the game. And so the squeals and the giggles, really occurred. And to me, I was like, don't do that. Because I've been trying to fight my way into the boys.
Yes. And
I've been laughed at for 3 years straight. Don't giggle and run away from the ball or scream. What kind of image are you giving us girls who really want to play this game and taking this seriously?
Geez, you emotionally switched on at a young age. You're telling these older girls, come on, this isn't...
I was like, come on, let's go. I think that's the inner competitor in me too. But I mean, our team got smashed. We got smashed every week for about 4 years. I learned how to lose badly, by 100 points every weekend. We'd get smashed. I remember playing for safety-based Stingers and we kicked our first point. It was like we had won the grand final. And I remember just everyone ran together and I think the opposition were kicking the ball back in and we were just like, we scored something.
How long did it take it? Look, there had been a number of games you've just been scoreless.
Yeah, a number of games. And then when we actually kicked our first goal, God, the heavens opened up. It was incredible. But so it's funny because I was never really about winning or never really came from a winning background. It was all for the love of the game.
This is making a lot of sense now of who I see in front of me, and you're talking about inclusivity and your school teaching and now coaching in the men's program as well as everything you've done. I can understand now how and why you are so passionate. As you sort of evolve through all of that and you start to get to these elite pathways when you're older, you must, within the start of 2017 we saw the AFLW, you must have just gone, what on earth is happening? Because it feels like it's been a movement, a revolution.
Yeah, it has. AFLW has changed my life, and not just mine, but, hundreds of girls across the country. It's changed society and how we view what a girl can and cannot do. Yeah. And how powerful is that sport has been able to shape how society views half the population.
Can you remember as it was being formed and it was sort of all brought together pretty quickly and rapidly at the end of 2016, can you sort of remember what your expectations were? Did you have any clue that it might evolve and grow like this?
Not at all. Do you know what was on my mind when AFLW kind of got launched and everything? I was just like, yes, they've given us this competition, but they could easily take this from us. And I was in this kind of mindset that I wanted AFLW to stay, and if it wasn't successful, if people didn't come to our games, if we weren't exciting enough, that they could just as easily take the AFLW competition away from us. And I just felt like the world was on my shoulders to create and help support and drive a competition that was here to stay. And I guess I was really passionate in that space of, I guess, why maybe the way I play the game is sometimes, maybe not so much care for my own body, because I just wanted to fly for the big marks, or I wanted to crash packs, and I wanted to tackle with ferocity, and I wanted people to watch and go, whoa, wow.
So you were conscious of that. That's how you made the decision to play and attack and do that because you felt a real responsibility.
I think that was always my style, but I think I just know, I love playing exciting footy and I want other people to enjoy watching that. So don't play with, I just wanted to play with freedom and with courage and just excitement.
Well, for those listening in that don't know, obviously you've been voted by your peers, and that's your teammates in opposition. I think 4 of the 6 years of the competition so far, you've been the most courageous player. You've been voted.
Yep.
Now, to me, that is getting voted that once is amazing. But 4 out of the 6 years, and you missed a year with your knee in that as well.
Yeah.
It's astounding. And I've said this before. I sort of feel very lucky and grateful. I've had a front row seat through work watching this evolve over those last 6 years. And you honestly play like you're renting your body. You're not like an owner-occupier. You're talking absolute no regard. Do you?
I've had to be a bit smarter now. Like I'm, 31 now. So, and this body isn't going to last forever if I keep playing that way. So it is hard to change those habits. And I was dealing with some hammy stuff this season. I've done an ACL. Doing those kind of injuries does make you rethink, when you go into a contest. I've had a few concussions as well. So all those different things can sometimes, does make me think that, I do maybe not need to go into that contest, or, can let someone else fly this time and look after myself so I can make the most of my AFLW career a bit more. That
first season you play in the premiership, first premiership against Brisbane up on the Gold Coast.
Yep.
Tell us about that feeling.
Yeah, it was incredible because, I'd left all my friends and family behind in WA to come over to Adelaide. In the hope that I could just help make them competitive. Adelaide Crows the AFL wouldn't give the Adelaide Crows a licence to be in the competition because they said, you didn't have enough female talent here in SA.
Geez, they regret that now, don't
they? I think they do.
So you partnered with NT, didn't you?
So, our Adelaide Crows actually partnered with the Northern Territory, and we got about a third of players from Northern Territory, 2/3 were from Adelaide. And so what we were able to do that year was quite unique because no other team had to do it. And that was like pretty much half your team living and training in Darwin, the other half living and training in Adelaide. And we'd say have a game in Melbourne.
Yep.
Both state and territory would fly to Melbourne, play a game and say, thanks very much, well done, great win, see you next week. And so you didn't even see your teammates through the week. You weren't training with them. Yep. And the football that we were able to display, no one knew who we were, and everyone thought we were going to be wooden spooners that year. And we came out and, played in the grand final. And
do you remember that moment standing up on the dais holding the cup with Aaron Phillips?
Yeah, and Beck Goddard, our coach. Yep. It was, it was just incredible. I was just smiling every single game, every single moment. I was just pure joy and happiness for playing at the elite level, for everything that we'd been through. Yeah, to be recognised as professional athletes was just awesome.
You've won 3 of them. You've won, well, there's only been 5, isn't there, because of the COVID year, there was no grand final. So,
correct.
And then the second one you win, there's 53,000 people at the Adelaide Oval.
Yeah.
That was, from my memory being at the ground, it was one of the most memorable games of football and crowds I have ever seen.
You were calling the game, were you as well? Yeah.
It was spine-tingling. Yeah, it was one of the hairs on the back of the neck. I'm sitting there because we were thinking, well...
What were you thinking, when you saw...
We were saying, they could get 25,000 would be amazing.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know what happened, but there was no way known they would have budgeted or even thought that. I don't know what happened out in the food stalls and all of that, but we're just watching, and before the game, more and more people, I remember sitting there with Sam Lane going, this is going to be a big crowd.
Yeah.
53,000. You must have run out and just gone, what the hell is this?
I know. Well, it was something that was on your mind because you weren't sure how many people were going to turn up, how many people were going to support it. It was the first time a grand final was held at Adelaide Oval.
Yep.
And, yeah, you're right. I mean, I think we had people miss the game because there weren't enough buses and trains in town that could cater for everyone coming in. So people actually missed the game because it couldn't get enough. Did you notice
in the warm-up and that, obviously you would have seen the crowd building?
Yeah.
And did you start thinking what's going on here?
Yeah, I thought, okay, well, we're starting to get some roll in. But when they did the final, official attendance.
It was up on the screen?
It was up on the screen. And at the time, I'd actually just come to the bench for a rotation to get a rest. And it popped up with 53,034. And I remember getting out of my seat. This is the middle of a grand final. And I honestly just raised my hands up over my head and did a 360 just to everyone behind me in the crowd with the biggest smile. And I tell you, we were lucky we were in front at the time.
You were in front by a fair way. Yeah. You smashed Carlton, didn't you?
But I think even if we were losing, my God, it was a moment where for me, I felt finally worthy enough. I felt that, respected enough. And after everything you kind of go through, you imagine from the age of 11 years old, basically up until that point, every weekend that I'd played football, the comments that I would encounter of parents even saying to my own parents, what are you doing letting your daughter play? This is a boys' sport. And so they're dealing with that. I was dealing with comments that go back to the kitchen as I got a little bit older, this is pathetic, go and play a female sport. Just every ordeal, every weekend you would cop some kind of comment that you'd just be like.
What sort of impact were those comments having? Because there's so many of them over and over again, or did it strengthen you?
Yeah, it does two things to you. And you have to be really careful when you start having those comments because you either start believing them, which is really the negative side of it, and you go, well, yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe I don't belong here. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this. But then you try and ask the questions why? But why are people so nasty? Why are people saying these horrible things to me when all I'm doing is playing something that I love? And then on the flip side, it does. It gives you so much. It gives you almost purpose in a sense, or I was almost inspired by criticism to try to be the best I possibly could, but it also never felt like enough. And you just never felt enough, no matter how hard you try. Challenging.
Do you feel like you're enough now? Do you feel validated? And I mean, it's always, as you say, don't worry about them. Don't worry about those.
You can easily say those things.
But it's another thing to actually in your mind believe that. But do you now, with the 3 premierships and everything you've achieved, and like we said, you're now coaching in the men's program, do you feel enough?
It's probably something I struggle with mentally. And as an athlete, you speak to most athletes, it's probably something they struggle with because athletes are chasing perfection or constant improvement on themselves. Yes. And
the perfection is never going to come. But the constant improvement will, no doubt. Yeah, the perfection thing is hard, isn't it? Because it's impossible to achieve.
100%. And so, it's bizarre. We've been really successful, team success. I've had some individual success and I'm really proud of those. I really am. I'm truly very proud of those things that we've been able to do. Yet, I still have my inner battles of, am I good enough? And that can be challenging to juggle that mindset. But, I've been doing a lot of work. I love learning more about that space, having more self-awareness and bits and pieces. But, it's even harder sometimes when you are successful because you win a premiership and then the next year they want more from you, or you want more from yourself and you go, everyone's going to hunt you. So you've got to be better.
I know Travis spoke when we spoke with him on this podcast. He talked about how a similar thing as a captain like you, feeling that pressure and striving for perfection and so forth. And it wasn't until he heard Ben Crowe, who's done some work with Ash Barty and a whole range of other successful people, and he said to Travis, it's okay to be you.
Yeah.
You know, you are enough. And he said that moment, that simple statement changed his perspective.
Yeah.
And he stopped worrying about that external
noise,
reinforcement, the external praise. And, you know, and that sort of coincided with these last 3 or 4 years he's had where he's been phenomenal.
Yeah.
But it's a lot harder to do than say, isn't it? You know,
it is, and it's, you know, I think as time goes on, you get more and more comfortable with it, and you start appreciating the sport for the joy and happiness that it brings you, and you are kinder to yourself and speak to yourself like you would a friend. You know,
that's a good point, isn't it?
A really important thing I find, and
I've talked about this before, where your self-talk can be so negative and degrading. You wouldn't talk to anyone like that.
No way.
Yet I would comfortably talk to myself like that for 30 years.
Yeah, exactly.
And I would never say that to your worst enemy.
No.
Why would you do it to yourself, who theoretically is the most important person in the world? You can't help anyone else till you help yourself.
And everyone listening is like, we are all guilty of that. Like,
absolutely. It's bloody hard.
And so how do we, you know, I constantly use like thought stopping sometimes, which is just a small strategy where it's like you can almost have self-awareness of realising, oh, I'm doing it again, where I'm smashing myself down.
Yes.
And you literally just say, stop, and you try to replace it with some positives.
Yep.
And there's lots of different strategies that people use that work for them. But I think we all have the strength and the tools inside us to deal with. We're the most resilient, you know, species. We sometimes don't realise actually, you know, how resilient we all are until adversity or something happens to us that makes us who we are.
Talking about that 53,000 and the win, and it was a great win, so you're able to enjoy it for a long time because you pretty much blitzed Carlton from the start. One of my favourite memories from that whole time was the next morning, because you and MJ, Mariana Rajcic, of course your premiership teammate and your partner, you were meant to come on to radio the next day and chat, and you didn't, because you'd obviously been celebrating. So I can remember going around to your place, getting you two out of bed while we were on air. And the most bizarre thing was that guy, Brian McFadden, the singer from Westlife, was with it. I don't know. He was like a guest presenter. So
brilliant.
Brian McFadden, the guy from Westlife, myself, come to your house at about, I don't know, it's probably about 7:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
Wake you and MJ up. And it was bizarre, because I reckon you two were both probably still a little tired and emotional and been celebrating. It was a weird moment when I think back to it.
It certainly was. Oh my goodness. I can remember that quite vividly. I think you called me and were like, so what are you doing? Heard you've missed your radio, you've missed your, I think I was supposed to fly out actually. I missed the flight.
Yes, you were.
And but anyway, I think, I was like, oh, we've got a surprise person. Who could this even be? Brian McFadden rocks up and I'm just like, wow, maybe I should have had a shower.
What's he doing in my bedroom? Brian McFadden from Westlife.
Like, hello.
And then the best part was we drove down to the Adelaide Oval. The four of us broke into the Adelaide Oval.
Did we break in, or did we? I think we asked permission.
We asked permission to go on the ground. We had to break in to get into the stadium.
Yeah.
And then had to then ring the curator and say, can we go on the ground? And we relived the moments at about 8 o'clock the next morning. So we're only hours after you winning the flag.
It was just such a memorable day. And I really wanted to, you know, did I just stuff that up? Memorable?
No,
memorable. It really was.
It was bizarre. And I can remember.
I think we did some car karaoke that morning as well.
We did?
Yep.
All on radio.
It was great.
What a bizarre, the little 11-year-old girl at the Safety Bay Stingers sitting with some bloke who's a pop star.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. Got to sing some karaoke singing with him. That was great.
Bizarre, isn't it?
Yeah, some great memories. But none of that would have been possible if we, you know, didn't have this AFLW competition. So, it's crazy.
You talked about, the expectation and all the look that's on you. A couple of years ago when you guys make a grand final again, and you're concussed the week before.
Yeah.
The way that you dealt with it and came out and talked about the maturity, because I could imagine in the men's game they're doing everything they can. They're going to the court, they're going, we've got to get him to play, especially the captain and such a key player. The way that you humbly accepted the fate of having to miss because of concussion and the story you told.
Yeah.
That was unbelievably powerful. Can you share that story?
Yeah, well, it was, it was hard. It was a hard time. Obviously, so we're playing Melbourne in the preliminary final at Adelaide Oval in 2021. And, I think it was only 5 minutes into the game. And a Melbourne player, Eliza, and I had collided and both actually received a concussion. And unfortunately, it ruled us both out for 12 days on the new AFL concussion protocols. So it meant, the following week, whoever made the grand final, whether that be us or them, fortunately it was us that won that game that day. We made the grand final, but I wasn't to lead my team out to the grand final or play. And that was really challenging because, I was feeling okay. I was like, well, I think I actually feel okay. I know it looked bad, but it was a moment where I thought I had to just really think for a moment and just go, well, what kind of message, am I going to be sending to the grassroots footy if I, accept this ruling? The message is powerful because concussion is serious and we need to treat it as such. You only get one brain. And, at junior level or grassroots level, I don't think we've treated it as serious before. And sometimes when someone gets a knock, they're just like, oh, they'll be right, put them back on. And, I explained the story when I was about 20 years old. I went down to a local amateur, D division grand final. The captain of this team who was playing, he'd actually received a concussion the week prior and he went to about 7 different doctors to go and get approval to play in this grand final. He didn't want to miss out, I know the feeling. And unfortunately, he received just a normal bump at a centre bounce and he never got back up. And he passed away that day from second impact syndrome, which is quite common if you return to play too early from your concussions. And that has stayed with me as a young 20-year-old, just how serious it could be. And so I wanted to make sure that, if I'm the first one to face this 12-day protocol, I was sad, I was gutted, I was devastated that I was going to miss out on the grand final and playing in it. But the message to our society was an opportunity that I could turn something that's negative into something quite powerful for those in a game that I love to protect them.
Gee, that must take an enormous amount of maturity.
I think it just took me some time to think about all those things. Yeah. But I've generally tried to always be that person that when, bad things happen or, I don't like even sometimes to label them as negative or positive experiences. They're just experiences that happen. Yep. But we have a choice on how we respond to it. Yep. And sometimes you just need a couple of moments just to think about what those responses are going to be.
Rather than the knee-jerk emotional reaction.
Yeah. And I mean, that's what the beneficial of like mindfulness, isn't it? Yeah. And meditation and what meditation does for us is create space in our mind for when, things do happen, we're able to create some space to then be able to make a good choice about how we want to respond. Do you do meditation?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. I only started a couple of years ago.
How are you finding it?
Really good. I found it really hard. And if I had a couple of years ago, and that was sort of to deal with depression and stuff. Yeah. If I had have thought about doing it a couple of years ago, I would have laughed because I can't sit still. Yeah. But I went and did a transcendental meditation course. So I do 20 minutes in the morning and 20 minutes in the evening. Wow. And brilliant. I haven't missed too often, pretty much in the last couple of years.
That's good.
But it took a couple of months to get through the process. They tell you where you've got, a mantra that you sort of say to distract your mind from the everyday thoughts until you can release your thinking. Yeah. It's made a huge difference. Yeah. I think the 3 things that I now always practice, exercise to me is number 1. Yep. The medication I always take now and have taken for years is always vital, and the meditation. Yeah. I think keeping steady with those 3 things and, try and make the right lifestyle choices. A couple of drinks here and there can tip the balance. But if you can try and follow those things, it makes an enormous difference. Yeah, do you meditate daily or?
I do. And I'm a bit the same. I really struggle with sitting still. And I think for a lot of people that have a go at meditation, their initial reaction is like, oh, I suck at this. I can't do it. And you go, well, yeah, but like if you'd never kicked a football before and I asked you to go and kick a nice drop punt to me and they can't do it, you've got to practice. Yep. It's like the same as anything that we do in our life. You have to practice, and it's more so of just having self-awareness and realization of going, like breathing in, breathing out. Oh, my mind's wandering again. Isn't that funny? Yeah. Like my mind's wandering. Oh, just go back to the breath.
Absolutely.
Okay, back to the breath. Oh, my mind's wandering. Oh, isn't that funny? It's doing it again.
Yes.
Come back to the breath.
It isn't it? You're just trying to don't get sidetracked with it. Let it think what it thinks and then let it go.
Come back.
But it's funny, isn't it? Because you're sitting there doing that and then you go, I've got to get that done by Tuesday. I've got to get the bins out.
Yeah.
I'm trying to meditate, then I'm thinking about that.
Thinking about all this other stuff. So anyone listening that you're like, I can't do meditation.
Yep.
It's actually, that's actually when you know that you need to keep going with it. Yes. Like 5 minutes, just 5 minutes.
Yep.
And the benefits, one really good example is kind of like, so say you're driving your car and someone cuts in front of you.
Yep.
And the first thing that generally comes into our minds, right?
Yes.
Maybe I won't swear on
no, you can swear.
But if you just be like, you bloody fucking mongrel, you could have crashed into my car. Yep. And we get angry and we get frustrated and we're like, ugh. And that's because we haven't had, I guess, practice in creating that space on how we want to respond to a situation. Yeah. We just go straight into our emotive emotions there. Rather than if we can learn to create space in our minds, maybe we can get to a stage. How cool would it be if all of us were like this? Someone cuts in front of you and your response is, oh, that person's having a bad day, aren't they?
It's true though.
Everyone's probably laughing and being like, oh, but honestly.
No, you're right. It's you talked about you don't think, you try not to think of things as negative. They're just things that happen.
Yeah.
It's always like someone once told me an analogy, like events just occur and then it's what meaning or story you tell yourself about that event is how it impacts you.
Yeah.
So, for example, if it's absolutely pouring rain and you're a farmer and you've been in the drought, you're outside dancing.
Yeah, 100%.
Because you're going, this is it. But if that's your wedding day, you are looking out the window, crying and screaming, going, my day's over. Yeah. Yet it's the same event.
Thing. And isn't that funny? I mean, like my gran came from the Channel Islands called Guernsey. She jumped on a ship.
Jersey and Guernsey, those two little ones together.
Yeah, you know it. So, she caught a ship over for 6 weeks to come over. This was Rose, my mum's mum, and she was in the drought when she came to Australia and she missed the rain. It reminded her of home, and it rained one day and Gran apparently just went outside and just danced in the rain. And so every time I see it's raining at training or something, I'm like, I think of my gran and I think this is just beautiful. Like, what a night. How amazing is this?
What a great story.
Yeah. So it's nice how but you're right. You change how you.
It's what you tell yourself is the story to that event, isn't it? And if you can change your mindset. Yeah. Nothing is sent. Well, it's hard, but nothing's going to be negative if you can look at it in a different angle. Yeah. You got to be calm. You got to meditate to be able to get through that, because as soon as someone cuts in front, I want to hit the horn and flip the bird. Yeah. And last night I was driving to work and a guy cut in front of me just near work at Channel 7 and he had New South Wales plates and he cut in front and I was about to go, and then he waved, put his hand up like a sorry at the same time. Yeah. And I went, oh, no worries. Yeah. And then I was cool. But if he hadn't done that, I was about to bid the horn and go, you stupid Sydney driver.
Isn't it funny how an apology, though?
Absolutely. It disarmed me.
It really does disarm people.
Yep.
It's really interesting.
Yep. Now, Chels, I want to ask you about your teaching, because you've been doing your teaching degree for a while and you're doing your prac stuff. What year number are you into doing your teaching course?
Technically, I'm a third year.
Yes.
But this is my 11th year. So I've got one more year. But yes, I have been almost there. Busy. Yeah. So almost there. But
tell us about teaching kids. Why do you like it?
I love it. I think teachers are just some of the most important people in our society. The ability, I think I heard this quote once before, and it was, everyone deserves a champion. And for some of us, it may not be a parent. It may not be a family member. And for a lot of young kids, their champion is a teacher, or it might be a sports person that they look up to. And I think just the power and the impact that being a teacher has. There's so much more than just being a teacher, you know. They wear so many different hats, and yeah, I think I just really value what they do, and I, you know, remember some standout teachers that I had that really helped me along my little journey as well, and put some belief in me. You know, Mr. Stokes in year 6, I didn't actually have him as a teacher, but he was one that when I started playing footy, he was like, do you want to play in the boys team at the school footy? And I was like, oh, well, yeah, I play outside, so I'd love to. He said, I'm going to make you the captain. And I said, oh, really? I don't know. What will the boys think though? Like, I was really nervous all the time about that. And he was like, nah, like, you're it. You're our captain of our, you know, of our footy team for the school. And just the belief that he had in me, you know, was something, because I didn't have it in myself. So, yeah, it was nice.
So you're coaching now with the boys.
Yeah.
You're teaching. You're a captain.
Yep.
I'm seeing this sort of really caring sort of nature about who you are.
Yeah, I guess it's something that I value a lot. I've, like I said, had some really beautiful people in my world that have cared for me, and there's times where maybe I, you know, maybe haven't been protected, and in a sense where I maybe needed to be protected by, you know, others. I mean, I was young when I left home and bits and pieces, and so yeah, to just have someone that cares about you and protects you and looks out for you is really important. And yeah, and everyone's got a story, right? Everyone goes through so many different things. So if we can just help one another, you know, give each other tools on how to deal with things, just get through life a bit easier.
You're now involved in the men's coaching programs we've touched on a couple of times. How nervous was it when you've been going for a few weeks, when you walked out there and you're confronted? Now you go back to that little 11-year-old girl in front of a couple of rows of boys playing. You're now in an instructing type role with the very elite of men's football.
Yeah.
How does that feel?
I was extremely nervous. So I tried not to show it. Yeah, I was in the weeks leading up to even starting. I was like, whoa, like, you know, am I going to be good enough? That self-talk started creep in again, and you know, what am I going to be able to add value in? Comments that you shouldn't read on Facebook or things like that you already accidentally scroll through and accidentally scroll through, and you're further. Like, oh my God.
What were some of them saying? Like,
like even here, like, this is.
Have you saved them on you?
No,
you grabbed your phone.
But
here.
this is like, I've grabbed my phone because it was only yesterday our Adelaide Crows popped up a photo, which is really nice. They've taken a photo of me coaching the boys. I've taken a drill yesterday.
I loved it. I saw it and went, what a great pic.
Yeah, fantastic. And they've actually deleted them. What on Adelaide Crows? But some of the things on there was just like, and so who's she? Like, and what's she going to do for the boys? Or like, you know, just like, just really negative things that, you know, you're just like, okay, well, the society really hasn't changed too much in some people, but it's nice. You know, the boys are incredible.
Yes.
They've been so supportive. You know, I think when I was explaining my drill, I was, you know, I think pretty good at communicating it, but yeah, my hand was like shaking as I was drawing on the whiteboard, but hopefully no one saw that. But it was just, you know, they're all my experiences from the age of 11 that have built up, and you just have to find this inner strength in me and honestly, I cannot tell you how much I'm loving it. Like I'm in the place that I belong, and I feel so happy. Like I haven't felt like this in such a long time, and I'm doing something that I actually, like I love playing it, but God, I'm loving being around the club. I'm loving being around this men's group and learning off the coaches and contributing as a coach myself.
Yeah.
I'm loving it. It's incredible. And so now all that nervous energy and anxiety weeks prior, I'm like, when I was about to say, nah, I'd find someone else or something.
You honestly considered not doing it?
I was just thinking, going, well, maybe someone else would be better than me, or maybe I'm not good enough for this. And, you know, MJ, my partner, has been really supportive in that space and changing my own language. But I really am happy with it all, and I can see how much I can add value. Yeah, I'm excited by that in the future.
There is no doubt you can add value. All you need to do is show those boys a couple of clips of you playing in the way you play, and that should be a bloody enough. Just do that, boys. You mentioned MJ. So she's your premiership teammate, and now she's your life partner.
Yeah.
The inclusivity, I think, of the AFLW and how it embraces diversity right across the board, I think has helped people understand completely different decisions, situations and lifestyles in more of a mainstream role. Would that be fair enough to sort of...
Hopefully. I can see how society has changed in that space. But again, you're dealing as a female playing in a male-dominated sport, let alone throw in now you're a part of, the LGBTIQA plus group or the rainbow community is probably easier to say.
Yeah.
That was challenging in itself in its very first year. I was very afraid on public, social media. I wasn't, advertising as such that I was in, a gay relationship because I was already seeing that some people were hesitant about female footballers already and saying some negative things. I didn't want them to give them another thing to kind of just hate us, and unfortunately that's the space that a lot of people in the rainbow community kind of live in fear by, is not being accepted again. Even just I remember when I came out to my parents, that, was difficult. My parents split up when I was about 11 years old as well, when I was 12, sorry. And so I remember wanting to tell my dad, and I drove all the way down from Mum's house about an hour down to Dad's, and I was like, you just got to tell him.
And how old were you at this age?
I think I was about 18, 19.
Okay.
I said, you just got to tell him, and couldn't get the words out. And so I drove away, and then Eve, my stepmom, had actually said to my dad, I think she really wanted to tell you something. You need to call her.
Yeah.
And Dad called me, and I was on the freeway going back, and he goes, was there something that you really wanted to say to me today? And I just burst into tears, and I was like, Dad, I think I like girls. I hope you still love me. I hope you can still accept me for who I am. I haven't changed as a person. And all of those things. Yeah, Dad was really supportive. I'm so lucky that I've got such supportive family of that regard. Some people's stories aren't exactly like that.
Yep.
Some of my friends were kicked out of homes, left on the street. Some abused. It's really quite a difficult situation that a lot of young people are trying to find their identity. And sometimes society just makes it so hard for them to be themselves. And that's why I think having such strong, diverse role models in our society is so important. Because I never really had them growing up. And if I, did, then maybe I would have seen that it's okay, that it's a bit more normal. And
it is okay, and it is normal. And it
100% it is.
And obviously
100%.
Your dad knew that too, didn't he? I imagine.
He did, yeah. And, so did for some reason, telling my brother was even harder, and he just head sandwiched me and said, you little tosser, of course I love you. And he's like, I've already known for years.
I was just about to ask.
And I was like, yeah.
You say your brother, I knew. Did your mum say, I knew?
Yeah, I think it's, and it's different for everyone, I guess. Everyone's coming out story, but it's weird. You never stop coming out. I wish straight people had to go to their parents and go, look, at the dinner table, there's something I really want to say to you.
Yeah.
Mum, Dad, I'm straight. I've got a boyfriend. I'm really sorry. I hope you still love me. And it's just nothing.
It's a good point. It's a good point because it seems such an emotionally powerful thing to have to do, and it is. I can see your reaction, Chels. And thank you so much for sharing. Who you are and that story. But you can see it's such an emotional situation to go through.
Suicide rates for people in the rainbow community I don't have them in front of me, but it's just, phenomenal. Like it's through the roof compared to kids that are heterosexual, especially even transgender people as well. People living, like there's people that come out in their 50s, or 60s even, and they've lived this life, in a sense, and they've finally come to a stage where they go, well, life's too short and I finally get to be me. It's crazy.
A guy I know who has painted you for the exhibition, he's a grandfather and he's now married to Kev.
Yeah.
But he, didn't come out until he was a grandfather. And, and talk to him about that situation. And you go, but he didn't have the opportunity at that time to make those decisions.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So, but Chelsea, thanks for sharing all of that because I know it's such a tough thing, but there'll be no doubt people listening now. And I think being a role model, as a footballer is secondary.
Yeah.
Being a role model as a person, with that will certainly provide strength and support. And I think the best thing anyone can do is stand side by side against someone who may be struggling in some way.
Yeah.
And I think your strength and your power to show that vulnerability will no doubt is and will continue to help a lot of people who emotionally might be struggling with some of that decision making.
Yeah, I hope so. And I think just the general consensus is, as hard as it is, like just to be yourself and things will be okay in time, and just continue to keep treating others with kindness and respect and, include others along the journey because I think that's so valuable. Not everyone's story is the same, but 9 times out of 10, for our rainbow community, a lot of support is out there. And that's why footy is so important as well because it's a network it's a second family. And for some people, it's everything that they have.
It's the family, isn't it? Not their second family. MJ, I imagine you two must be bloody great support for each other.
Yeah, it's interesting. We obviously teammates as well and met through football and stuff. And it was, a really probably difficult scenario for us both because any thought that any individual has, I had them tenfold. I'm an overthinker, as you can tell. But, I was like, no, I'm not dating a teammate. I'm not doing that. Let's not, think about team dynamics. What happens if it doesn't work out? Like, I'm a leader. This is not something that I want to, I guess follow through with. And that was really challenging. And then our teammates were incredible, really supportive, fully professional. Like I treat it, it's a workplace for me moment. And I share that, MJ understands it's when you walk through the doors, we're at work. And when we're home, it's our personal lives and her family's, just beautiful to me. And I couldn't be happier. Things have turned out.
That is brilliant. It's so good to hear.
Yeah.
And again, Chels, thank you for sharing because it's deeply personal, but there's no doubt people will gather strength from the strength that you've been able to show. I think of that vulnerability as well. Before we wrap up, I need to ask you.
Yeah, go for it.
Friday the 30th of September this year.
Yeah.
What's going to be significant about that day?
Friday the 30th of September.
That night.
Is that our showdown night? Our first ever showdown. It's going to be, it's the first season that we've got Port Adelaide.
Yep. Adelaide Oval.
At Adelaide Oval. Yeah, the first ever showdown it's like I'm being WA, it's a derby. And
it is.
It's a different language, showdown derby.
Yeah.
It's going to be pretty exciting. So my old co-captain and best mate and teammate, Aaron Phillips, is going to be playing in the Port Adelaide side. So it's going to be a great night of footy, I think.
Well, it's been a challenging year for both teams in the men's program. So I can imagine for a lot of the supporters when they'll be playing finals, and obviously all the finals will be done by then, what an amazing night I think that's going to be. You think back to that 2019 grand final with the crowd there. Who knows crowd-wise, but I think the moment is, it's going to be pretty amazing.
Another historic moment, I think, and lucky to be a part of a few of those historic moments in our AFLW competition. But this is another one that's going to be incredible for South Australian footy and for female sport. So really looking forward to it.
If you go back to that 11-year-old girl that just looked across the lineup at that other team and you saw the kid that was pointing the finger, do you reckon you can take that aggression into watching Erin Phillips wearing teal, black and white?
It's funny. I think I've finally let go a little bit of it, that 11-year-old, I guess in that sense. But, every year, every season, your purpose kind of changes. And my purpose, now that gets me up and going is really just leaving a great legacy at our Adelaide Footy Club or across the competition. And hopefully I can leave the place in a better place than when I first walked through the doors. And hopefully I can just really play the best footy I can this season. Yeah, take it out in the field and continue to.
Well, Chels, that's a given.
Exciting.
You've already made the Adelaide Football Club, and you've still got plenty of time to go. You've already made the club better than it was before you got there. There is absolutely no doubt about that. But I think what's more important and significant is there would be thousands and thousands of lives you've already changed, and you will continue, whether it's your teaching and your coaching and you're playing footy or it's just you being you, I think. There's no doubt.
Thanks, mate. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much, mate, for coming in here.
Thanks
it's been an absolute pleasure. And again, thank you for Chelsea, having that real strength to be open and to be you, because you're not just a great footballer, you're an even better person. There's absolutely no doubt about that. And it's a real privilege to have you in here telling your story, Chels.
Thanks, Soda. Appreciate it, mate. And, I don't think I'd ever normally be, so vulnerable, but I think vulnerability is really important, and sometimes we shy away from it. It takes a lot of courage to be vulnerable, but by sharing our stories, I think it can be really powerful and maybe help just at least one person. So, whoever's out there, just, don't shy away from sharing your story to others because, it might help someone.
Thanks, Chelsea. You're an absolute beauty.
Thanks, Soda. Ta.
Well, guys, thanks so much for listening. Now, if you love what you just heard, please subscribe to the Soda Room podcast. You could write a review. You can watch the show on YouTube and share it with your buddies. And if you'd like to get in touch with the show, drop us a line, info@thesodaroom.com. Catch you soon.